You are listening to The Heritage Pod, presented to you by the Heritage Group of Institutions.
Hi, this is Shubhrajit Ganguly, welcoming you all to the Knowledge Series podcast. In today's episode, you will be listening to Professor S.P. Gon Chaudhuri, who is also known as the Solar Man of India. Professor Chaudhuri will be speaking on the renewable source of energy with special reference to the solar power.
I'm Professor S.P. Gon Chaudhuri. I was former Special Secretary to Government of West Bengal. Now I am Chairman of NBIRT and I am a Professor of IIST Shibpur, and I am also Chairman of Expert Committee in Department of Science and Technology. We need energy to do any work, be it irrigation, be it industry, or lighting, or fan or cooling system. Everywhere we need energy. Even when we sleep, we need energy. And the earliest form of energy in the mankind, it was the human power, muscle power, and also the animal power. But gradually we discovered coal, and we started using of coal. And the coal, initially it was not very popular, but after the Industrial Revolution, coal became very popular, and with the steam engine and the generation of electricity, we started use of coal. Then later on in 1848-49, that time we discovered oil, and in Azerbaijan, the first, in Baku area, capital of Azerbaijan, first time the oil was struck, and we discovered oil, we started using of oil. These are the two most prominent energy sources which we used at that time. And at that time we were not knowing about the pollution and environmental degradation and other thing. But later on in 1950s, Russian, they developed the nuclear power plant, and they started producing power from the nuclear power plant, and we thought the nuclear power will be the solution. And up to 1975, 76, 77, 1980, the nuclear power plant, was really coming up in the whole world in a very big way. But later on, in 80s, we first came to know about the pollution from the coal-based thermal power plant, from the transport sector, which are burning really fossil fuel, oil, diesel, petrol and other things. And also with the Chernobyl accident, the nuclear power disaster, the threat of nuclear power, that also we came to know. The entire community of the world, the scientific community, the administrative community, the heads of the states, they started thinking about what should be the alternative. But we need energy. So what should be the alternative? So the main point, at that time the worldwide research activity started on the alternative energy sources like solar energy, wind energy, bioenergy and other things. Basically from the end of the 70s and 80s, all the research activities started throughout the world. But the solar photovoltaic was discovered long back. In 1839, Edmund Becquerel, he discovered first solar photovoltaic, but it was not used. It was only used in 1956-57 in the Vanguard spacecraft, where there is no electricity provision. And in order to generate energy, they started using solar. The Russian, they installed solar cells in the spacecraft, in the satellite, and that started generating energy, and that was supplying the energy of this satellite. Bell company, they fabricated that solar cell. But really the solar energy, became popular, started, really application in the whole world, we started in 80s, basically. In India, we started use of solar energy in 80s, particularly to electrify the villages, the rural areas where there was no electricity. In India, there are 600,000 villages. At that time, hardly 1 lakh villages or 1,50,000 villages were having electricity, conventional. So in order to give light and fan to the remote area people, we started using solar electricity in 1980s, in a big way. But for 20 years we did that, and a lot of people, they took advantage and they got electricity benefit from solar energy at that time. But later on, when there was a big pressure on the global community on the reduction of use of coal, worldwide, large scale deployment of solar power plants, solar power. It was thought, and the entire world started using large scale solar power plant like megawatt scale. 5 megawatt, 10 megawatt, 50 megawatt, 100 megawatt, and that megawatt scale solar power plants, they started exporting power to the grid, and that is how it was reducing the use of coal. In India also, the first solar power plant was installed in 2009 in India, the large size solar power plant, but fortunately it was installed in West Bengal at Asansol. It was a 2 megawatt solar power plant. It was installed in 2009. But from 2010, India launched the National Solar Mission program. I was part of that, and there was a target of 20,000 megawatt of solar power plant by 2022. Later on, it was enhanced to 100,000 megawatt, and by 2022, which we are doing now, and India has achieved about 80,000 megawatt of solar power plant. But and I'm all tied up. I am associated with all these type of activities for long 35-40 years. From the very beginning, I was instrumental in promoting solar energy in India. And interestingly, I will tell you one story. President Kalam, he was very fond of solar energy, and he invited me to Rashtrapati Bhavan. Probably it was in 2006 or sometime like that. And I stayed with him for almost 3 days, in Rashtrapati Bhavan, in order to install solar power plant there. And he was so excited about that. And I designed the plant, and finally it was given to MNRE for installation. But the design and the concept and the documentation during that period, we discussed with him, and based on that, Dr. Kalam also visited one of our solar power plant in Sagar Island in Sundarban. He himself came and he inaugurated the power plant. So after that, in India, the present Prime Minister, he is also very much active in promoting solar power plant. India is leader in one sun, one world and one grid concept. The Prime Minister himself, in the Glasgow Convention, he declared that India should be the headquarter, and in India, ISA, International Solar Alliance, is based at Delhi, who are really doing a lot of research activities with 70 countries on this particular concept, the international grid concept. In the irrigation sector, agriculture sector also, a lot of solar pumps have been installed in the country. But first pumps, when we installed the first pump in 80s, it was very small, of half HP or 1/4 HP capacity. Now we are installing 50 HP, 40 HP solar pumps for irrigation and drinking water. The rooftop solar systems, many people in the country now, they are having their own solar power plants in their roof, and they are producing their own power, and they have reduced their electricity bill. This is a major power plant, and India is supposed to install 40,000 megawatt of rooftop solar power plant by this year, end of this year. So this is how India is really coming up with a major solar energy program in the country. In the recent past, only in 2021 at Glasgow, India has committed to install 500,000 megawatt of renewable power by the year 2030 to reduce the emission level by 30%, and India is committed to that. All the plans and programs and the policies are being formulated by the various states in that direction, and we are sure that India will become a leader in the whole world in promoting solar energy and keeping the world, the globe, livable for the future generation, and we will keep a green, livable world for our future generation. Thank you very much.
That was Professor Chaudhuri speaking on the renewable source of energy with special reference to the solar power. For more content, keep listening to the Heritage Pod. This is Shubhrajit signing off.
Presented to you by the Heritage Group of Institutions.